Welcome to the Pro Aging Podcast. I'm Steve Gurney, founder of the Positive Aging community. We're thrilled to have you join us for interactive discussions with pioneers and thought leaders on a wide variety of topics related to aging and longevity. These insightful discussions and the Positive Aging Sourcebook are brought to you thanks to the support from our Positive Aging community champions. Visit proaging.com to connect with them and discover hundreds of valuable other resources. We're excited to have you with us today, so let's jump into an engaging Positive Aging live and interactive discussion. All right, folks, today I'm here with Wally Klatch, who has an amazing story to share that I've personally found to be very unique and inspirational. So Wally, thanks for joining us today. And before we dive into your story around dementia, let's get to know you a little bit better. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Fair enough. Let me start out by saying, Steve, it's a privilege to be here and to be part of your activity in your world. So that's by far the first and most important thing. Steve, as you say, I'm Wally. I was born in Indiana, grew up there, and spent time in New Jersey. I was a management consultant for large corporations in operations and organization, making everything connect, the boxes and the lines and things like that. So at a certain point, I went to Israel for my junior year abroad of college, and I liked it. In the end, I was 30 years living right outside of Jerusalem. And it was in Jerusalem, actually, at the hospital in Jerusalem, where I was diagnosed with early stage dementia and lived there a few more years and then moved to Denver about a year and a half ago.
Yeah, no, this is great. Now, do you have a family? How many?
Four kids. I have 4 kids. 3 of them are living in Israel now, and 1 is living here in Denver, not far from where I am. And they're all happily, each one is on their path for building their own lives. And that's
great.
To me, that's a really big thing. That's a delight that's the situation.
Okay, now you had mentioned that you had a dementia diagnosis. What led up to this diagnosis? Were there symptoms, or what led you to talk to a doctor and get a diagnosis?
Sure. What happened was I was living in Israel and things were happening, but I didn't pay too much attention. I thought it's usual aging. You start forgetting things here and there, but it wasn't affecting my life. It didn't affect my functionality, as they say. So I flowed with it. And then an incident happened, and that was the trigger. It was a specific incident where I went to there's a really nice Roman amphitheater by the sea there in Israel at Caesarea. And I went to visit and I really liked it. So I called my son and told him how much I liked it there and how beautiful it was. And he said, "Dad, we were there together 2 weeks ago." And then he explained to me, he told me about our visit, and it just wasn't here at all. And now that was a hit. I took that to be, wait a second, that's a wake-up call. So I went to the doctor, my own doctor, referred me to the neurologist, did all the tests, the MRI and everything, and that's where I got the actual diagnosis.
And what was the official diagnosis at that
Early stage
point?
dementia. That's what
Okay.
They at the beginning they call it MCI, mild cognitive impairment, and that's a standard phrase for. They don't go into the specific types of dementia like Alzheimer's and Lewy body. So they start with MCI, mild cognitive impairment, and then as it goes along, they start slotting it into different kinds of dementia.
So now, like, uh, what, I guess, can you share the emotions that you felt or what was going on? What were your thoughts when you got this diagnosis? Did it change your perspective on the world and how did you react? And I guess that was approximately 3 years ago,
That's
correct?
right.
Okay.
Yes. It didn't change. It went, the first period after that was just black. There are only two words in my life. One is dementia and one is dying. Uh, just the word dementia. Yeah, I couldn't connect my name with or me with dementia. It's just not there. It can't be. Dementia is drooling and sort of mixed words and stuff like that. So that was the very beginning by far. It was a very dark period where I had to first figure out for myself and then start reaching out to people. But at the very beginning, I needed to just be for a while and let it sink in.
And
Um,
did you for the folks that may be listening to this that are in a similar situation with a diagnosis, was there anything as you look back on it now that might help others that are in a similar situation in that sort of dark stage?
okay. I think it's really individual, Steve. What will help any particular individual? The way my thing has developed, I talk about it. To me, that's that's what helps me. Two things. One is the first word I had, guidance. Right after this is happening, I'm starting to. I, what happened was I knew I was dying and dementia, but then suddenly I paid attention that I'm also living. So that's somehow along the way, it dawned on me that I'm not dead and I am dying, but I'm also living. So once I started realizing I'm also living, then the word guidance became guidance from religion, from organizations, from people. So in answer to your question, uh, I had to give myself the time. Nobody could help me get to that point where I start opening my eyes and start looking at the world. That I had to do myself. But guidance became really important from a lot of people and to help me uh, start getting some alignment to uh, go to groups, go to talk to people in this situation. And so that's what I would say was the process that happened there was to pull out of the darkness, and then I need help. I had never, I don't know when I ever said the words I need help. It just wasn't I was in a world that I did not have a clue, a very scary world with the word dementia all over the place. And that's how it unfolded. And it took time to find the guidance, hear it, absorb it in some way. But yeah, that's the process I went through.
And going through this and living with dementia, um, what are some things that you have learned? And has there been any disruption in your lifestyle or like in terms of things that you can't do or things that you now do differently? Or have you uh yeah, tell us a little bit about what it's like living with dementia after you've processed the the uh
Okay. The
the
first
diagnosis.
part after getting to the point of looking for help, getting guidance, getting help from people. At the first part, the important part was the guidance, trying to wrap somehow come to the what you said. How do I keep living my life? But there weren't any impairments, so to speak, in the sense of, functionality or daily routine or stuff like that. The first part is just trying to get adjusted to the idea, but no, I did not feel things that were affecting my actual functionality in a day-to-day basis.
Now,
But
let's talk. Oh, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
okay, I would just say that after that, um, I did start paying attention more to things that were happening to me, and I've done that since. How often do I go to the neurologist, and I really feel a person has to, you say, well, my neurologist this, my neurologist that. I feel the only person who can really know what's going on with me and feel and measure, that's only me. And I don't know how to say this nicely, but one of my neurologists more or less agreed with that. I'm the one who knows it. They'll do their standard tests, but I have to pay attention. And that's just an answer to your question. Yes, I've felt very specific things that have been reduced and that I pay a lot of attention to.
Great. Thanks for sharing that. Now, talking about neurologists and medical teams, one of the important things is the diagnosis, but then the potential treatment. Have your medical team done any prescriptions or given you any sort of treatment after diagnosis?
Yeah, what he did, what the neurologist did was when we were starting on this track, he gave me a lot of pills for the diagnosis, for the symptoms, sorry, for the symptoms. My hands were shaking. This hand is non-functional because it shakes too much, but he kept, and I had certain things happening, really sharp things happening in my mind and stuff like that. And he gave me all kinds of pills, which I still take now, for the symptoms. I have not taken, there's some pills that I don't even know the names of the medications that are supposed to do this or that. I've not gone into those. The neurologist has never got me on that track. But I do take quite a few pills to lower the result of the symptoms that I'm having.
Now, out of curiosity, with your this sounds like a movement disorder with your hand. Have you talked to a movement disorder specialist or Parkinson's specialist? Because I know sometimes dementia and Parkinson's can go hand in hand.
You're exactly right, Steve. Actually, I smile, but only out of there's the office with the four neurologists. I've gotten three different diagnoses of which type of dementia it is, and exactly what you said. One of them is Parkinson's disease because of the shaking. So one thought that, and one thought the other, and one thought Alzheimer's. So I didn't really go to a specialist related to what you said, but the different neurologists who apparently have different, it is a science, but let's say there's ways to interpret different things. So yes, one of the neurologists really paid attention to that and really used that to say what that person thought.
Great. Well, thanks for sharing that. This is really insightful. Now, one of the things I've talked to you a couple of times, and one of the things that I'm thrilled that you're doing that I think is very authentic is you've actually set up a website at the alzheimersconversation.com. And I'm sharing it on the screen here. But as you've told me, talking about this and spreading the word that, you can live a purposeful and productive life with a dementia diagnosis is part of your purpose now. And this is one of the elements that you've set up. Tell us a little bit about this website and what folks can find when they
Sure.
visit.
Steve, thanks for putting that up because if go right here, right about a little more down a little bit more. right there, right there. Go to where it
Hmm.
says the journey ahead, MCI journey. So that's going to be a little bit above that.
Oh, the MCI. Oh, right here. Yep.
There you go. So what happened was nobody should take this to be a web designer's site. No web designer would admit to designing this. What happened was things kept happening. You could say this is like my journal. Things kept happening, and I knew how to put stuff on a website. So I just kept putting things here. So if you go back to that first screen where it had the journey ahead, just back one from there.
Oh,
Um,
here we go.
there you go. So what you'll see there is it says the journey ahead, MCI journey. So that was the first thing. I videotaped myself just a moment or two, a couple of minutes each one. And so that was almost a journal. Then I started feeling different things. So what's happened is my brain is working less, my feelings are working more. I felt that. So I put in the second line, the shift from thinking to feeling.
Hmm.
So they automatically label you MCI, mild cognitive impairment. But no, yes, I'm cognitively impaired. I'm not denying that. But I didn't want to see myself that way. So I invented MEE, which is mild emotional enhancement. And I'm
Oh, making it
feeling
a
this.
strength. I
What's
love
that?
it. It's making it a strength.
Well, you know what? I didn't have to think about it. It was my feeling, and all of
Hmm.
these things. This is not an author writing a book. All this stuff is stuff that happened to me. I felt. So you're right. It turns it into a strength. It was cognitive feeling. I don't feel like it switched like that, but I feel like I'm in much better balance now between
Hmm.
the brain and the feeling. So that came along. And now, then the next one is what we touched on before. I'm dying, but I'm living also. So I just felt it. I felt they were dancing together, the living dying duet. And that's also had a big impact. You know what? I accept that they're living and dying are dancing in my life. I- I'm glad that living led the dance for as long as, and I accept that dying is starting to lead the dance more and but I see it as a dance. It's a way for me to relate to what's going on in my life, that they're both
Hmm.
there. And I could keep going, Steve, and I'll just do one or two more to give a feeling of this kind of stuff. One is I did look to religion to get guidance, and it turns out I hadn't realized it, but in the Bible, dementia is mentioned all over the place.
Hmm.
When I read the Bible from a dementia perspective, I'm amazed. Dementia, it describes dementia. There's people, I won't name names, but there's people in the Bible I just read, I say, that's a guy with dementia, etc., and like that. And just down
Now,
below that, vocabulary. I
yeah, now
had to,
before you go, I don't mean to interrupt you, but before you go to vocabulary, um, were you a person of faith before the dementia diagnosis, or do you find that that your diagnosis led you to uh, a more investigation of your faith?
I was already enough into my religion that it was easy for me to pick up and start looking what I was already familiar with through a different filter. And so I was already not an orthodox or big observant, but I was already connected into religion,
Yeah,
which
and
is
it's
also one of the
also
reasons why I looked there for help.
Yeah, it's also a community that is international in that, you will talk about it. I'd like to talk about it. You made the move to the United States from Israel after this diagnosis, and there's uh, faith-based communities all over the world.
You're exactly right. And that's for somebody who wants to connect into that community, whatever their faith is, yes, you're right. It's good to be able to go and connect with people in different places. There's mindfulness. The world is full of mindfulness. Well, okay, where's feelingfulness? I feel like, so I invented feelingfulness.com just to say, hey, whenever you talk about mindfulness, let's put feelingness right next to it, and they really add to each other, but it doesn't exist now. So that's another thing that's come out. The vocabulary, I'm feeling things that I never felt before, and I couldn't find a description in the English language. So I created a little vocabulary there. And then I'll just wrap up, going through this because but anyway, this list on the Alzheimer'sConversation.com has all this, but it was amazing. I'll tell you just exactly how it happened. My guts, I pay a lot more attention to my guts, which is feeling. And my guts one day said, create your tombstone. I pay attention to my guts certainly as much as my mind, and they speak to me very clearly about my feelings, and they push me to it. So it was hard for me to grasp because I planned to be cremated after I'm dead. So it didn't make sense to my mind. So I took my mind out of it. I'm getting an instruction, and I just flowed with it with my feelings, and so I said, then the question, okay, create my tombstone. What does that mean? What is and it took several weeks because I took it seriously. Well, two things. One is, who am I? What do I want to express? I'm going to be cremated, so I'm not going to have a piece of marble or whatever they use that says my name, date of birth, date of death. That's not my tombstone at all. So what do I want my tombstone to say? And physically, what is going to be something like a tombstone? It's not going to be a standard tombstone. So I really went through very relaxedly, not hurried. I thought through, what has happened in my life? What do I feel about different things? And really went along with it and flowed with it and developed in my guts and in my mind what was going to happen. And I'll jump to the end because I don't want to describe the whole several weeks process, but I did come to two conclusions. I'm happy to share because that's what I'm all about.
Yeah, that's great. Now, out of curiosity, well, I am curious about the conclusions, but I'm also going through this process. Have you shared these things with your close family and friends? Your thoughts and feelings and what you're thinking about as far as end of life?
Yes. I'm glad you asked that. How do I end my life? And really, it's the question is a little, how do I want to live my life? Dementia does horrible things, and caregivers of people with dementia go through it's horrible. So, what is the life of somebody with dementia like for themselves and for the people around them? And I looked into that quite a bit. I appreciate your asking about that, Steve. I really felt about it. I volunteer at an old person's home to feel it in action and talk to people. And there's an organization that I've very much used their resources. It's called the finalexitnetwork.org. And they are right there. People asking the questions I'm asking. The finalexitnetwork.org is there providing not only providing information themselves, they have forums where people in this situation can connect back and forth about these topics. And there's nothing like connecting with people who are in the same place and asking the same questions. So yes, I went through that whole process and came to my conclusion about how I see the rest of my living and my dying. And actually, again, I'm glad you asked this. I'm feeling very complete about a lot of things. And once I went through that process and really established what and when I'm going to do, it just took okay, I'm complete with that. So that has happened at the points along the way. So I'm really glad you asked. And that
Well,
feeling of completeness makes a big difference of
well,
wholeness.
I really commend your transparency and sharing this with us because um, what I also sense is that you do not want to give those around, you don't want to, you want to minimize, and I hate to use the word burden, but by communicating with the people around you with your diagnosis, you're minimizing the I wonder what dad wanted. I wonder what we should do. You have done enough self-reflection and communication with those around you that that's probably leading to that completion. That's amazing.
Steve, you exactly what you're saying. Actually, I did a lot of that thinking before I told the four kids and my ex-wife. And so when that was a really tough process to communicate with them. But just what you're saying, I presented it as this is the decision I've made.
Hmm.
They don't have any responsibility. They don't even have a role in that decision. So exactly what you just said, I didn't want them to, and I was complete enough with myself. I didn't need the back and forth. I was complete. But just what you're saying, it was I think it's made it easier for everybody. And yeah, I have the vision for how I see the thing unfolding. It'll be very hard for all of us and hard for them, but my goal is for them to continue to build their lives, remember me and how I want to be remembered, but exactly what you just said.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that because I've had so many conversations along this lines, I mean, the fact that you're thoughtfully going into this, the thing is that whether we have a dementia diagnosis or not, none of us know what tomorrow or the next day or a year from now will bring. And, we're all got our fingers crossed that there's going to be a cure for dementia. And, um, but the one thing that we know is that if we're not communicating, if we're not thinking about this, we and those around us won't be prepared. And we hear too many crisis caregiving stories. You'd mentioned volunteering there at a senior living community. I can guarantee you that there was a lot of adult children that were struggling with helping mom and dad because there was no communication or thought to what would happen if someday I lose mobility or have a diagnosis. So
You are so
you're a
right.
real inspiration.
And you can see that I'm in several Facebook groups for caregivers, and every day I'm at the end. I can't do anymore. I don't know. I can't take care of my parents. My brothers and sisters aren't helping as much as I think. Dementia destroys, period. That's to me, that's how to think of dementia. It's a big destroyer. And if the rules aren't set out in advance, just what you said, Steve, it will destroy even more. It'll be very difficult even with everything laid out, but it does horrible things to relationships, to this, to financially. Let's say the word, to spend thousands every month to get mom taken care of. And the arguments, just what you said, if it's not defined in advance, I will, let me say something, the Final Exit Network taught me is there's the paperwork, the powers of attorney. There's all kinds of paperwork to fill out. And somebody from the Final Exit Network said that paperwork isn't going to mean anything. You need a bulldog. Everybody who filled out, you need a bulldog, somebody, not the family, somebody you know that knows what you want. And when pardon me for saying so, the hospitals, the doctors, the pharmacists, they want you alive. For whatever, I don't want to say, for whatever reasons, it's not enough to fill out the paperwork. You need a bulldog that's going to come in and say, this is what the person signed. We're not going to attach that other thing or whatever it is. So just to throw that in, since you mentioned that topic right there.
I love it. Man, we have talked about a lot, and I know there's a lot more that we can talk about, especially the difference between you're somebody who's experienced the healthcare system in Israel and in the United States in treating your dementia. But I'm definitely going to have you back on multiple times. But is there any other elements that we didn't talk about today that you'd like to share about your journey? And folks, I highly recommend the alzheimersconversation.com, where you can literally read Wally's journal, and his story is going to be different from everybody else's, but I've learned so much just from what you've shared and looking at your website, and it's got me rethinking what happens if I have a diagnosis, and I could have a diagnosis at some point in my life.
You are so spot on, Steve. And yeah, there is a lot more we could talk about, but you're pointing out that each topic is covered on the site. I think I'll say it, creating my tombstone was the most meaningful thing that happened. I've been wondering, let's see, I would recommend to anybody, say, 55, 60 years old, go through the process. And on the website, it tells how I went through the process, the conclusions I came to. And so, yes, anybody, I get emotional easy. Anybody who can benefit from what I've been through, I've put it on the site. Please, there's no cost or anything like that. There's no business aspect to this. Just what you said. I would ask that anything that's there that can be of benefit, that helps me accomplish my purpose. And I'll be delighted now or well after I'm gone. Please use anything that I've put out there for whatever benefit anybody can get out of it.
I love it, folks. Wally, thanks so much. And folks, I hope you enjoyed this discussion and learned as much as I did. And we'll be talking to you soon, Wally.
Thanks so much, Steve. I very much value this opportunity. Thank you so much.